Right on. Ooh. All right, we are back. How was lunch? Good. What was it? Sandwiches? Sammy's? Awesome. How many of you guys here would consider yourself an educator in EMS? Come on, everybody's hand should be up. We're teaching the next generation, right? Awesome. This talk is for those that are looking to try to improve the education, whether it be within your own firehouse, whether it's how you precept FTOs. I want to show you how we've tried to combine left and right brain thinking when it comes to education. And so I'm going to start off by talking about something you guys are all getting ready to experience right now, and that is the hammock. And I don't know what's going on here. Can we make the screen bigger? Yeah, okay. I got a feedback on the audio. All right. Is it still feeding back? Sounds better now? If I stand right here. Okay. All right. So the hammock. This is interesting. So when you are listening to a talk or any sort of like education, there's a couple different points that people can fall into. You'll hear everything I say in the very beginning. And then right here, everybody's very studious. They're sitting there ready to take notes. And then at the end, when I'm like, all right, you can tell I'm winding down. In conclusion, everybody kind of peaks back up again. And right here is the hammock. How long do you think you have in the beginning of a presentation? 32 seconds. This guy's already done with it. Yeah. He's like, as soon as the mic started feedback, I'm done. I'm out of here. I mean, you got minutes, if that, right? And I hate to break it to you, but the attention span is not getting any longer. And so we need things like, we call them spiky moments. That's what me and my team at HomeFret, we talk about these spiky moments where you do something to make everybody perk up again, right? It's like, how do we get everybody to all of a sudden start paying attention? And these little spiky moments that we have need to be somewhere in the middle, right? So if somebody says to me, somebody asked me last year to give a 2-hour keynote. And I'm like, a 2-hour keynote? I don't even know, as much as I drink coffee, like, we're going to need an intermission at some point, right? Play some elevator music while I use the restroom. And I thought, there's no way you can keep somebody's attention for 2 hours, right? So what I have to do in my head is break it into like 3 or 4 different 20-minute talks and plan on, if I end early, nobody really cares, right? They still get the credit for it. It's interesting, though, to see the attention span getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So I'm in the business of keeping people's attention with education. HomeFret is an online platform, right? So we do free blogs and podcasts, but our main product, and the thing that will let me retire one day without jumping in and out of helicopters, is our online learning management system. And I'll show you some pictures of it, but it looks like Netflix, right? And when somebody's at home and they're taking education classes, everything in the world is a distraction, right? You got babies, you got your cell phones. Like even right now, you're not going to get through this without wanting to pull out your phone and check stuff out. And so I was looking at TikTok. We've tried to explore different types of social media platforms. I don't know if you guys are familiar with TikTok, but the Chinese owns all of your information now. So yeah, great job. But this is interesting. So I posted this TikTok, and they actually show you the drop-off rate, which is a huge like hit to your self-confidence. But it shows you like people start watching, and then right here they're like, screw this guy. They're not interested anymore. And so it's on pretty much every single monitor. You just got to know how to turn it on. It's a great way to assess whether the finger you put your pulse ox probe on is actually going to get perfusion. So and you just see it just slowly just dropping off. Everybody's like, nope, I don't like this. And then if they made it this far, they'll keep watching it typically, right? But when I look at this, I'm like, there's all of these people that this was not for them. And then as it continues, you can see, oh, these are the target audience that I wanted. And so when I think about EMS education, It's like the majority of it is not sexy, right? It looks like this. It looks like slides with bullet points and maybe some granulated, pixelated image somebody got off of Google Images by typing in hurt leg or ingrown toenail or whatever, and they add that into it. And so if you're going to make something that people are going to pay attention to, you got to look outside of EMS, right? We have to look at the people who do this really well. I have 3 kids, right? And my 3 or 4-year-old now can sit through the entire Toy Story movie. So exactly. Why is that? Why can we sit through an entire movie, or why can a child sit through an entire movie, but most of us can't sit through a 15, 20-minute lecture without getting bored? It's more entertaining. Yeah, it's entertainment, right? So they know how to hold our attention. So you're saying adults have more stuff that can distract them? I could totally buy that. Yeah, absolutely. But I look at this and I'm like, I want to learn from the people that get you on the edge of your seat, right? I want to learn how to make people go, shh, you better be quiet. I want to hear this, Like that's the moment. You ever been like you come walking into the living room and your spouse or friend is like, shh, stop talking. I want to watch this. It's like, how do I get people to shush for me? I want some shushing going on when I'm talking, right? And it doesn't typically happen, but the people at Disney, Hollywood, Universal Studios, like they understand that, right? And so my original dream job was to become a Disney animator. We had season passes to Disney. I grew up right near Orlando, and there was a place there. This is back when Hollywood Studios actually had the animation department at Hollywood Studios. And you could walk in and you could tour and see all the animators sitting at their desks working. At the time, they were working on Mulan. And I was like, man, this is fantastic. Like you could see like the storyboarding that was going on. And like, this is my dream job. Like, this is exactly what I would want to do. I'm going to go to art school, and this is the track I'm going to pursue. And then I had a girlfriend who said, have you ever thought about being a firefighter? And I was like, I was like, you know what? Maybe. I think I may get more chicks being a firefighter than being a guy who draws cartoons, right? And so somehow I started going down. And I thought, I would be a good firefighter. I could see the aviators and I could see like the whole setup, and found out firefighters wear Oakleys. They don't wear aviators, right? And then I was like, I am a horrible firefighter. I was not a good firefighter. I love the medicine side of it. And so I got into flying. So this is my helicopter at Lifelink 3. But what I found when I started getting into public service was that people valued regimented over being creative. I can remember this one guy I thought was super smart at the fire department, flat top, buzzed haircut, Oakley sunglasses, just shredded, And somebody said something to him and he goes, negative. And I'm like, this guy's a tough robot. That's what I need to become. I need to get out of this Mickey Mouse stage, literally Mickey Mouse stage. And I need to put on some weight. I need to start lifting. I need some Oakley sunglasses that I can wear on the back of my head when I'm in the hospital. I was like, I got to start doing this, because I could tell that there was this preference towards, if you're going to save my life, you don't be drawing pictures of Mickey Mouse. This was the internal debacle in my head at the time. I'm like, I gotta be like these guys. And I'm like, if I was building a presentation, I would build it like they would, right? Because you want to be accepted into it. And it's not that firefighters and paramedics and EMS are not creative, right? I mean, you have to be pretty creative to like get somebody out of this. This looks like it was almost me trying to drive up to drive up here. But in general, it's very simple. What was that? He's making comments about me. In general, EMS and the education is very sterile. It looks like this, and if it's not this, it's the stock photo that everybody's been using for the last 10 years that they put on their website for every conference. And so you start off when you're growing up very creative, right? You're into stories. Tell me a story. You're drawing, coloring. You're attracted to colors. And then it seems like something happens where you start going more towards this left brain as you become an adult, likely because of what you said. Like there's other things going on. You don't have time to dedicate to trying to be creative. And you're like, what does being creative mean in the first place? And so when I look at this, I'm wondering like, if we're left brain, how do I get myself to go back to right? Because some of the most influential people and the people that can hold your attention have found a way to go back to right brain within their adulthood. And that can be very difficult to do. And so for me, I got out, I was like, okay, I'm gonna abandon making puppets and animating, and I'm gonna go to be a firefighter. And then it almost came like full circle where I was like, foam fret is the thing that allows me to itch that creative side, right? And so I started off with me and my buddy Sam were very competitive, right? So he would make a really cool image and I'd be like, all right, I'm going to make one even better, right? And so we would compete with blogs and stuff. And so we try to come up with these really cool, attractive like thumbnails for our blogs. And then even going into like creating online workbooks. Has anyone ever downloaded one of our workbooks on FoamFret? They're free. You can go on there and there's ultrasound, capnography, acid base. And so we're like, how do we let's make a workbook that looks like somebody actually like was taking notes in it. And so you could see like how a creative person or like an artistic person would take notes in a medical textbook. I'm like, that would be super cool. And then we started taking that same design and then putting it with like our reference cards. So we're gonna talk about some of this stuff tomorrow. And so we built through the aesthetics, studying Disney, Marvel, all color theory, training with some people actually from Disney and Pixar, how to create this way of getting back to the right side of the brain of thinking. So this is what our learning management system looks like. This is Studio, and you can just scroll through it. I'm sure some of you guys probably already have a subscription to it, and you can click on the classes. There's new classes coming in like every month. You click on them. It looks like Netflix, right? It's like the Netflix of EMS, and we're always adding new classes into this. And so with that, it can't just look like Netflix. It has to hold your attention, right? And so we thought, well, we know what we should do is we should study with some directors, animators. So we sent 3 or 4 of our guys to go study animation. It was all online. And so you'd go jump online and they would teach you how to create these characters, how to make the heart and contract and do these animations. And then we took some storyboarding classes actually through Pixar. And so they would show us how to write stories and how to take medical information and put it into stories to make it beneficial. And so they start off, just trying to make a ball bounce. So you go through and you'd do a bouncing ball and, okay, cool. And then the next, we'll turn that bouncing ball now into a squirrel. And so you do this little squirrel. And then it was like, okay, now create a character, right? So here's the guy from earlier. And so, I think we can all identify with somebody like this in EMS. And so we created these classes that would utilize characters and stuff. So here's the challenge. Somebody said, I need a HIPAA class and I need it to be interesting. How do you make a HIPAA class interesting, right? So we go to the drawing board, we're storyboarding this, and we're like, all right. First of all, I'm glad they didn't say sexual harassment training, right? Because I can't use a pigeon for that. I mean, you could, but anyways, I'm like, how do you make this interesting? And we're like, well, here's an idea. And we were talking with some of the guys on our team, and we're like, what if you had this pigeon that is flying around like an urban area, like New York, and he's ratting out all of the HIPAA violations he sees EMS providers making, like leaving a face sheet in front of the ambulance, or the providers go out to a pizza shop afterwards and they're talking about a patient encounter. And so we created this, like, you got on a ride and the pigeon comes in and starts talking to you and telling you that he's going to show you around, right? And so I'll show you just a small clip of this, and it's probably going to be hard to hear because of that. But he's going and he's showing you these providers eating at Christofoli's Pizza, and they are talking about a patient that they had. Okay, next on our tour is Christofoli's Pizza.
decent slice if I do say so myself, and one of the top hangouts for these ambulance people after day shift. Now, you may argue that it is okay to talk about a call with someone else who is also on that call, but this is a big issue. We have ears all over the place. For example, Wayne right here is talking about a combative patient that he picked up at the bar last night. Honestly, is trying to enjoy the league, but is becoming increasingly annoying with unprofessionalism from Rescue Randy over here telling war stories. How embarrassing.
So this is done in a software that's free. It's called Blender. And so you can go and you can download assets, you can download characters, you can download a doctor, and it looks like this. So this is like the little, it's almost like a Barbie house, right? Like you have the little set that you have over here. You have to animate them, but you can see I put the camera on the bird, and then I'll actually go in and have this start moving while he's talking. And I go on, you guys know what Fiverr is? You ever heard of Fiverr? Fiverr. You could go on there and say, I need someone who sounds like Scuttle from The Little Mermaid to do a voiceover for a pigeon I'm animating. And they don't ask questions. They do it for you. Or you could say, hey, I need someone to animate me a person that falls off a skateboard and breaks her leg. And you could find these like contract animators like through Disney, Pixar that make money on the side just doing this stuff. And so if you go on Fiverr, you could, if you wanted to spice up your presentation a little bit, or what we were talking about earlier with like the shadow boxing, you could go on there. You could even go to FoamFrat and pull some of our animations as well. But there's people, if you don't have the time to spend to learn how to do all this, you could just go on there and type it in, contract it. And they say Fiverr because it's like $5 or so, you know. It's usually a little bit more. You know, to have this guy do the voice for my pigeon, I want to say it was like maybe 150, $200, but he had a lot of stuff he had to read. And I wanted him to squawk in a couple scenes, and it got a little expensive. Well, that's what, and so I mean, it was with as much content as we put out, it made sense for us to actually learn how to do this stuff ourselves. This is another part of the HIPAA. He's taking a selfie with this patient. And so we started taking these, and you know, it's always different characters and stuff, but we're like, let's try to build like a brand aesthetic, almost like Disney Pixar. And it's not always cartoons, right? Sometimes it's we just brought in an EMS lawyer to come in, and we did like a real documentary style presentation with him. But it's all about the story. It's trying to get people hooked in the beginning of the story, and then make it seem relative, right? It can't seem like it's something you're never going to use, and then keep them in, right? And have a how are they going to get out of the situation? And then you tune into the next series, you know, and they show you that. And so through this, we've built, you know, quite a bit of online education. And so what I wanted to talk about today is some of the ways that you're able to put this stuff into practice, you know, without having to dress like an astronaut or I've always, I made this one over here where I'm dressed in a NASA suit. And it's a flight physiology course. And I started laughing because we have 30,000 people inside Studio, which is our learning management system. And I'm thinking of all the cranky firefighters or whoever that has probably had to go in here and watch me wearing an astronaut suit. Like they probably want to punch me. They got to sign this. But what can EMS learn from animation? Studying with these really creative people, getting out of EMS and studying something abstract and then trying to bring it back in, there's some really cool things. So we did this course called the Educator's Atlas. And it was like the first thing we did when we created online courses. And the goal was to take people away from going on Google Images and just trying to build stuff that was PowerPoint driven and actually present something that was fun, animation wise. And so it starts off with storyboarding. So when we're coming up with a new talk, what we do is we go through and we storyboard it. The reason you storyboard it is because right now we have a team of animators that we have to pay. If they're going to go in and they're going to animate a scene for us, I don't want them to have to redo that scene 3 or 4 times and waste money and obviously time and resources. So what we'll do is we'll just go through almost like a comic book would be, and we'll just do these short little rough sketches on what we're trying to get across for that scene. Then we'll go through and actually add on the audio to it. So I'll go on Fiverr, I'll contract somebody to do voices for the characters, and then they'll start doing that, and we'll do just an animatic where we just play it back and we watch to see, like, is this working? Is it exciting? Before we ever step into the actual animation phase of that. EMS is actually pretty good at using illustrations to tell stories. And I know this because I asked on social media, I'll see if this will pop up, explain your last call using 4 emojis. You can imagine where this went. I like the CPR one, and then you can tell they got Rosk at the end. This one was, I think, my favorite. But it's visual storytelling, and it's the simplest form of it. But I noticed, even is Chris Ebright in here? He was in here earlier. I noticed even Chris had used emojis and stuff, and it's a very simple way. But you're trying to get a point across really, really quick. You want to try to get them to understand what you're talking about because you have a short amount of time. Have you guys ever seen someone who throws up a ton of words on their slides and they read the entire thing off of that, right? Or they don't read any of it and they go, well, this isn't really important, and they click through to the next one. And you're like, well, why'd you put it in there? You only have a brief time, like we talked about, to hold somebody's attention. And if I look and I see a graph with font this small, I'm checked out, right? The other thing that happens is if I pull up bullet points, the first thing you're gonna do is read them all and then go, okay, I'm checked out. It's almost like pigeons, right? You just got to give them a little bit and then hold back. If you throw them the whole loaf of bread, they're like, screw you, I got my bread. But you give them one bullet point. Don't bring them all up. Bring them up one at a time and just keep them eating those little breadcrumbs out of your hand. We did there's an outdoor medical conference called Crash and Learn. Have you guys ever heard of that? Super cool. So it was in, what was it, Colorado last year? Bailey, Colorado. It's outside, everybody camps, and the talks are all outside in the woods, and they got these little learning sites. And they said, Tyler, will you come speak at it? And I said, yeah. I was like, let's do a talk on incorporating animation into EMS education. And so we came up with these little workbooks that we did where we would show how to tell stories, the hero's journey or whatever. And then we had the little storyboard thing. And one of the things we really pushed was something that animators call staging. And staging is how something reads. And so when you look at, for example, this picture of Jiminy Cricket, you can see that he's doing the same thing in both pictures, but one of them reads better, right? Which one do you see? Well, obviously the one that's not crossed out reads better. But you can see him and they call it silhouetting. So when you're trying to like pose a character in a certain form, they say if you were to completely silhouette them out, black them out, could you still see what they're doing? And so when I think about this like staging and appeal and stuff, I think about EMS graphics, right? If I want something to read really well, and we're always asking, is this working? Does this look good? I think of like, this was in a journal, a medical journal, like a professional, I don't know, New England Medical Journal or something, or Journal of Medicine. What do you think is going on in this picture? Is that the Lucas smashing the kid in the head at the top? So if you had 5 seconds to look at this, would you guys say this picture reads well? No, we cannot tell what is going on, right? And there's for multiple reasons. So I don't know if you guys follow Foam Frat on like social media, but we always post infographics. We're always posting infographics. And before those go out, they'll come in and we'll look at them and be like, people are scrolling on their phone. Within a finger scroll, will I get what this is trying to say? And if it doesn't help, right? The best graphics out there are the ones that you look at for a couple of seconds and you immediately get it. Another one is when you're explaining like acid base, like this one. This looks boring, right? It looks like, oh God, I got to read what all these things are. So this is a concept called electrical neutrality. And I know that's a big word for after lunch, right? With the lights dim. But essentially, your cations and your anions in your body have to be equal. So you have like sodium chloride, but you can't have way more than one. You have to be completely equal. So for some reason, somebody's a DKA patient and they have ketones that start to elevate in their blood. The ketones are anions. So they start elevating. And so you can't have more anions. So the bicarb has to shrink to make room for them, right? Okay, this graphic does not do a good job of showing that. But if I make ketones a ninja and I have it kicking the bicarb and the bicarb dissociating into CO2 and water, it makes it a lot easier for me to explain this really quick. Even better is if I go to animate it and I say, all right, I'm going to bring in some ketones, and the ketones are going to crush the bicarb to pieces, and then I can follow that through. And this is, again, is in Blender, that free software, and I can say, well, this is water, and now, this is CO2. So trying to find ways to get a graphic across that it makes sense. When we do our reference cards, it's the same way. If you have to sit there and look at it for a second, it's not working, right? Now, have you guys used ChatGPT at all? Has anyone played around? Do you know what ChatGPT is? Oh, man. So, yeah. It already knows you. So, OpenAI, ChatGPT. You could go in there and you could say, write me a 10-question quiz, multiple choice, for paramedics on burn treatment. Include the rationale and only one correct answer for each question. Within seconds, done. Pulls off of resources online. You go through and you read it. When we do our podcast, I'll copy our script from the podcast. I'll put it in a ChatGPT. I'll say, write me a 10-question quiz with one correct answer with a rationale. It reads the script and then puts it all out there. It's amazing. You can feed it textbooks. You could take your paramedic textbook, put it in there and say, make me some flashcards. And it'll spit you out all the flashcards that you want. So who here has used it? So what have you used it for?
Teaching a confined space entry class pretty much generated animation, but they found me animation things for like vertical and horizontal and places. And the test was a lot easier than they do it now.
How much do you think this software costs? It's free. It's 100% free. And so the question is like, I was working on my bachelor's in psychology, and they tell you to write papers, right? So they'll say, write me how many word essay on this. You could literally have ChatGPT write that entire essay for you, and then you just find the resources for it. Go in there and misspell a few words so that way the computer doesn't detect it. Throw off a couple, punctuation stuff, and it'll do it all for you. And so a lot of animators right now that for Disney, Pixar, Nickelodeon, Universal, they're concerned for their jobs because now there's a new one coming out called Sora. And Sora, you could say, I want a paramedic driving an ambulance and talking on the radio, and it'll literally animate that scene for you. And you could say, no, make the ambulance red, and it'll make the ambulance red. That's how easy it's going to become. Now, if you're an animator and that's your full-time career, that's super scary, right? If you are an EMS provider who's wanting to spice up your presentations a little bit or to bring something fun into the training room, this will be an amazing resource because you can add it in there. Now, it still has some work to do. So I just did a class I recorded called the Pain Academy, where I talked about pain management in EMS. I went on and I asked AI to write me a talk on pain management. And I'm going to show it to you guys. It's not that good, but it's going to keep getting better. Watch this. So this is a software called CapCut. CapCut, yeah. And so I went on here and I just said, and you can see the prompt I put in here. Write me a talk on pain relief strategies in EMS. All right, so it starts creating this talk, right? This is what it came up with.
Hello, everyone. As EMS providers, we're treating cancer patients with acute pain and requiring prescription pain medications in the first line of treatment. There are several pharmacological strategies that we employ to help.
Okay, so obviously we have a long ways to go before we can completely, I don't think everyone would be in the hammock within like 10 seconds on that talk. But it's a start. It's starting to get it. We just have to change the voice a little bit and add some more interesting graphics, right? So if you're wondering, I mean, how many people here would consider themselves artistic, not autistic, artistic? I got a couple. I'm both. I mean, I feel like we all have to kind of be on the spectrum a little bit. But how do I? Well, you look at people who are really good with art, and this is something that they can start immediately putting together in their head of how they would put it together. The problem is not everybody is, and sometimes we've all started kind of right brain, but we've shifted so far into left brain that it's really hard for us to even pick up a pencil and doodle. I mean, can you guys think of the last time you doodled on something? Shay's always making fun of me because, yeah, look at that. I saw you doodling over here too. Yeah. Yeah, she makes fun of me because we'll be talking at a restaurant, and as soon as I take the receipt and start drawing on it, she's like, okay, he's checked out. As soon as Mickey Mouse pops up on the receipt, he's not hearing anything anymore. But just putting pen to paper and drawing a little bit is a great way to start that off. And so if you're wondering how you start moving a little bit more to the right side, for one, just have a sketch pad open and a pencil or paper in your room, right? Just to write down ideas and stuff. And then the next way to incorporate this is to give yourself little challenges. So when I was the training officer for a company called LifeStar, I walked in, I gave everybody a blank piece of paper and a pencil. And I said, I want you to draw me a normal 12 lead. Because they were all paramedics. I was like, you all write normal sinus rhythm all the time, so you guys should have a pretty good idea of what normal looks like. And so I wanted them to draw the boxes and then just draw like a complex for each one. I mean, it was insane. Like everyone was like, I've been a medic for like 20 years and I cannot think of what all these should look like, right? Because you have to know the direction. You have to understand what R wave progression looks like. And so when you have to draw something from scratch, you find the holes in your knowledge bucket that you didn't even know existed. And so just when you're sitting around, if you guys are at the bar tonight or something, just take out your paper, draw it. First, see if you can label the leads in the correct spot. I saw a couple that were like ADL, ADR. And then once you get to V1, that's easy, right? I mean, that's pretty easy to start counting. But just if you can mentally recreate that, can you mentally draw a 12 lead? Because when you draw something, it hits a different side of the brain. And it's trying to test if your knowledge is there instead of just like tracing it, I remember when I went into my OR clinicals for paramedic school, the anesthesiologist said, before I'll let you intubate a patient, you need to draw the structures of the airway in the order that you will encounter them. And so he wanted something that, I don't know what happened here. Now everybody can see how unorganized my desktop is. So he wanted something that looked like this, right? And so he's like, follow the tongue down into the vallecula and then label, all right, I'm going to go down the tongue, 1, I'll hit the epiglottis, 2, where you're going to deliver the cord through. And just using some of these visual tips and stuff like this for just initiating that right side of the brain can really be beneficial. Because what's going to happen is if you go into your EMS fire department and say, I want everyone to draw a picture, they're going to be like, no, we're not Mickey Mousing, right? Regimented, not doing this. And then if you make it into something that's immediately applicable, you can trick people into drawing because they're like, oh, okay, we're drawing airways. That's grown up, right? We're not drawing pictures of Mickey Mouse, or we're drawing like airway structures, or I needed alveoli recruiting. And I'm like, you know what? You guys ever use Procreate on your iPad? There's a cool app called Procreate, and you can go frame by frame and like just make like atelectasis. And then make those inflate in there. And then I can take that and then move them into Blender and actually make the lungs inflating in their different areas and the air pendulum through them. And then create with that, all right, what do cytokines look like? I don't know, probably like this, right? They're destructive little beast or whatever. And so then we thought, another way of incorporating this into training is virtual reality. I loved what Erin was saying about the burn patients with the Oculus. I was wondering, I wanted to ask, but I didn't, what they were watching. I don't know if she's in here right now, but I was curious what they were watching with the Oculus. Was it like Mario Supercard or something like that? Or was it like they were on the beach? Has anyone tried virtual reality? It's insane. It's really cool. We decided to do a virtual reality online course, and we did these like classes. And so we like for Foam Frat, a lot of our meetings started off like all on virtual reality because we're all over the country. And so we thought we should do an online ultrasound class. So you can come in there, you can see people have like beers. I don't know where they got the beers from. But you could go in there and everybody can sit around. I mean, that kind of looks like this room a little bit. And you can instruct and everybody feels like they're sitting right there in the room. And we're like, we should take it a step further. Instead of doing it like a classroom, we should make it like a tour where like imagine there's a big house or a warehouse and we all walk to the our way of progression room and the whole room is like immersive, you know? So we wanted to do one called 12 Leads in VR. And we made this like bookshelf almost. And we had all of the complexes in this big bin. And we had this game where like the people, and these are real humans playing this from all over. They had to grab the complex and put it where it would belong inside the actual VR thing. We're able to give like CAPC credit for doing this, for playing these games with the Oculus in a virtual reality environment. And so this is the team that won right here. I don't know if you guys know Ritu Sani, but that kind of looks like Ritu Sani right here. He's one of the medical directors in Oregon. And then I don't know what happened to Mike Brown's arm. So then we're like, what would be the next step? The next thing would be, how do you make renal physiology interesting? You know, that's pretty tough. And I'm like, nope, you come up with furosemide droids. And then you create something called Renal Park. And then you lead a tour starting off in Bowman's capsule, right? So they'd have to go into Bowman's capsule, and we had these furosemide droids that were attacking the sodium chloride transporter and making these patients all pee their pants. And so, and so you had to go in there and save them so that way they wouldn't pee their pants. And I'm sure CAPC, when this came across their desk, they were like, all right, you know, it's Tyler. I'm sure he's got a goal with this. We'll give education credits for it. But yeah, we would go in through Bowman's capsule and you could see like the filtrate leaking out of this. And so we'd animate it all, drop it into this environment. And then I would just be in my room with the Oculus on. Like for this one, we had like 50 to 60 people show up. Like we way overcrowded the renal tubules. Like I was like, okay, we have to like separate or something. And then what happens is people, we had to like refine it because you get some people in there that just want to clown, you know? And so they would start, you know, grabbing the droids and running around with it. And I'm like kicking people out. And so at the end, we all got together, we put together these puzzles, and then everybody kind of sat around and did like a happy hour type thing where we would sit and talk. And we've done it with the renal, we've done it with 12 leads. We took everybody inside the alveoli. I don't know if there's no smoking signs in alveoli, but I feel like there should be. And so we've done these things to try to get the brain to go from the left side back over to the right side. And so as you guys continue, and a lot of you guys are probably at a part of your career where you've been doing this for 25, 30 years, and you need to bring up the next generation to like not feel like they can't utilize that creative artistic side in EMS. And when it comes to creating presentations, when it comes to explaining things, like being able to dabble a little bit into that part of your brain that was lit up when you were a child is extremely important. And we found that by doing this, people now want to sit and actually watch our classes online. And you know, we can tell some of the retention stuff within Studio as well, not as well as you can tell with TikTok, but every time I see a new platform come across where the content is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and it's like 10 seconds, you know, and 5 seconds, and people are clicking, it's like, what are we gonna do? And outside of Neuralink and like me just connecting something and giving you information, like this style of learning where a bunch of people sit and you have one presenter in the front, I mean, it's classically what we've done, but it's not that beneficial, right? I mean, it takes a lot to hold somebody's attention for an hour just by talking to them. But this is the style that we've always done. and it's the easiest way to get a bunch of people into a room and give them continuing education credit. But what does that look like in the future? Have you guys thought about that or adopted any of this stuff into your classrooms? I mean, for most people, it's going to be incorporating what you've seen your instructors do and just replicating that. Well, I saw you shaking your head. What type of stuff are you doing within your classrooms?
Like a lot of the public works guys, like water, wastewater guys.
Yeah.
Here is to learn different ways. One of the things I do is funny slides, different animations. Or something because I mean, you're talking about bloodborne pathogens at a wastewater treatment plant.
You can borrow my pigeon if you want for that. Yeah. No, it does. And that's, I mean, you throw up a poop emoji, everybody, we're all looking for a reason to laugh when we're sitting here, right? Because it's like a long day. I can make some really corny joke and everybody will kind of laugh a little bit. Especially you guys. You guys are really good at, this morning I was like, man, they think I'm funny. And everybody, it's kind of like at a funeral, everybody kind of was secretly like, wants to laugh a little bit because you're not supposed to. But like in a classroom, everybody kind of wants that. So when you put up your poop emoji, everybody laughs. The guy who's sleeping over here is going to go, oh, what's everybody laughing about, So trying to figure out ways like that are hacks, I guess you could say, to try to like get someone up. It's like, all right, somebody pull the fire alarm around 20 minutes, to get everybody back into it. But it is interesting, and we're going to have to keep our ear to the ground with technology, not be afraid to embrace AI, figure out ways to keep people's attention, because that's the most effective way to get information across until we can just hook our brains together and do like Neuralink stuff. But until then, that's probably going to be the best way to do it. And so I am an open resource for anybody who has questions. If you guys reach out to me and you're like, dude, do you have any animations of a furosemide droid? I'd be like, you came to the right guy. Yeah.
Because this other bucket is boring and it's reading and it's bullet points and it's all this other stuff. And unless you can actually connect what this book is saying with what actually is happening, it's a whole different audience.
Yeah, and when you're going to give a talk, and I encourage, I know not everybody's into public speaking, but I feel like public speaking has prolonged my career in EMS because it's allowed me to do something else in EMS besides jumping in and out of an ambulance or a helicopter. If I wouldn't have found FoamFrad, if I wouldn't have found something that itched that creative side, I would probably be on my way out to do something more artistic. And so even if you don't feel like you're the best public speaker, like if you could give a 10, 15-minute talk and really focus in, people who try to talk about the entirety of a subject within an hour, you're not going to learn anything, right? The way you make a picture interesting is you zoom in on one component of it. And so you'll sit there and you'll hear somebody, they'll talk about sepsis and they'll tell you every damn thing about sepsis you ever wanted to know. How much do you actually take away from that? Barely anything. So when Sam and myself or any of the educators are planning a talk, the thing we ask is when people leave and they go walk out and you go up to them and you go, hey, how was that talk that Tyler did? And you go, oh, it was pretty good. And they go, oh, what was your favorite point? What are they going to say? Are they going to be like, oh, I don't know. It was fun. It was funny. Or are they going to have like a call to action, like a main point that they take away from it? Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here for the rest of the week. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing a talk on the myth of ST elevation and some other things to look for. And then after that, we're going to talk about positive pressure ventilation as it relates to hemodynamics. So more medical stuff. Today was the art and fluff.